Okay, hello everyone, and let me introduce Evgen, one of my favorite lectures from Roland Scopes. And Evgen, are you here?
Yes, I'm with you. Hello, Anna. Hello, everybody. Can I start? Can you hear me? Anybody? Okay, great. I suppose that you can see my screen too. Am I right? Great. So let's start. Where is this button? Okay. So, as Anna said, my name is Evgen, and today we are going to start learn some bunch of front-end technologies. It's HTML and CSS. As you maybe know, all front-end stack can be split into three main technologies. It is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML, it's usually skeleton of your web pages, your web applications, and etc. CSS, it's different styles, which brings some, I don't know, some visual effects to your pages. And of course, JS, it's functionality. So today we are going to cover this topic: basics, I don't know, definitions, basics, ideas. And since this day, I suppose that you can start to write your web pages by yourself, and you will understand how it works and what is the main idea. Okay, let's start from the very beginning. What is HTML and how we can use it? First of all, it's HTML. It's a hypertext markup language, and it was created in 1988, 1990. And in simple words, usually it's a native language of your browser. Doesn't matter what you use, Firefox, Internet Explorer, Safari, Chrome, and the others. What does it mean, hypertext? It means that inside HTML, usually you can use different links, anchors, and some hyper elements that can redirect you to another pages. Markup, it's very simple. It's just markup. It's a styles, basic styles of maybe your browser that can be used for the different element. And today we are going to see this element, text, and such things. And of course, language, it's just language, nothing difficult. CSS, it's more interesting. CSS, in the simple words, it's a cascade style sheets. It's the table, in general, table of different styles that you can apply to your web pages, as I said. And its styles describe how your elements will be looks like. So different style, different animations, frames, and such things. And if HTML describe content, styles usually describe how this content will look like. Okay, here is some features that CSS use that are applicable to your pages. So I don't want to repeat every information that you can see on the slide. In addition, we will share the links on the slide. That's why I will add some additional information for each slide from myself. Sorry. And here is the simple example of the page when you create it just using HTML. as you can see, it's just information. In most cases, it's text or links. Blue underlined text, it's a links. So this is how your page looks like when you use only HTML. It's just a markup without any styles, but with the all information that you want to present. But if you add additional styles, this page can look like, as you can see on your screen. So without JavaScript, it's just a style. So here is the information that's presented by HTML. Here is the information looks like when you apply some styles. Before we dive into these technologies, let's talk a bit about browsers and how they appear and how they works. Also, I want to pay your attention on this icon. It means that on this page is present a link, so you can click it and read useful information about browser wars, for instance. Not all pages contain this image, but in most cases, you can find very useful information on some slides. Okay. At the beginning was just one browser. It was Netscape Navigator. It appeared 1993, and it was alone. And Microsoft saw that it's not very good. And in 1994, they presented Internet Explorer. And for now, it can be a bit fun because I suppose not many people around the world use Internet Explorer. In most cases, we use it only for one goal. It's download Chrome. But in 2002, the Internet Explorer users percent was 96, and it was amazing amazing number. And since this time, Netscape is die because Microsoft and Internet Explorer take all markets. A bit later appeared new browsers, for instance, as Mozilla, Opera, Chrome. Again, not Internet Explorer, it's Edge and Safari for macOS. So a lot of browsers, and became a browsers war. Browsers war, it means that at the beginning, all browsers work with those engines, with those styles, personal, and it was a very interesting, I would say, challenges to make your page the same in, for instance, in a Chrome and in Mozilla, because Mozilla has some inner styles, and as a front-end developers, we should never learn this difference between two browsers. So it means that in Firefox, your page can look like a bit different. But if we look at the current situations, for instance, now, as you can see, it's a very fresh statistic. On the first place is a Chrome, and it's an amazing leader. And somebody says that it's a browser for lazy developers, but anyway, it takes a good percent of the market. Almost the same information Yes, it's more visual, more visible, maybe more understandable, more clear. 64% for Chrome and 16% for Safari. And of course, if we speak about sites, web pages, we should understand that when we create a page, web page, doesn't matter. This page can be open on the different devices, including mobiles and tablets. And this year shows that on the first place is mobile traffic is. So now it's a preferable design and preferable devices to browse internet. And I don't know, maybe 5 or 3 years ago appears two different approaches. It's mobile first and desktop first. This approaches shows for which device you will be create your layout first. Can you please mute your microphone? Okay, thanks. So now I still can hear somebody. Oh, thanks. Okay, if you choose, for instance, desktop first approach, you create your web page for the desktop, and then you decrease width size and try to rebuild your layout for tablet and then for mobile. If you choose mobile first approach, firstly you create your web page for mobile and then increase size of the width and rebuild your layout for desktop. Okay, if we talk about anatomy of website, usually it's very simple because all your content will be put into HTML file. This HTML file, its structure usually contain text. It's a text structure for all your document. In this HTML file can be included and usually included CSS files and JavaScript files. And after that, after this structure uploaded to, I don't know, the server, your page can be browsed from the browser. And this is the structure of website anatomy. The main terms of HTML, it is element and tag. Usually element, it's a separate component with a particular type of information. It can be image, it can be text, heading, etc. And always this element you have to wrap in the tag. Tag, it's a minimal structure unit that that explain to a browser what content it contains. So it means that if you put just the image, browser don't understand what is it, or if you type any text, it doesn't mean that browser open your page, and not only browser, some search engine and open page and understand what is the text. So you, with the text, you specify your elements and your content. And now we move to a tag structure. As I said, usually text looks like this. Text can be opened, can be closed, and it's a special control code written and angle brackets. It's a very simple definition with explanation. And as I said, all content on your page have to be wrapped in a text. Also, I suppose that you can see my cursor, but anyway. So let's move to the next slide. As I said, globally, all texts can be divided into paired and unpaired. All text which contain closed part and I would say text with self-closing. So they, in one case from the left, for instance, column, we have two text. Green text, it's open text, and white text, it's a closed text. And if we take a look at the right column, we can see only green text with a slash. It means that this tag unpaired and it's self-closed. When we speak about text, we also should mention attributes. Attributes, it's special elements which extends text functionality. So all your text has itself styles, for instance, itself functionality and the other. But when you add some additional attributes for some text, functionality of this text is increased. We take a look a bit later about this topic. We will talk about it later, and I show you maybe more specific examples. But for now, as you can see on this page, you can find it would be better if I ask you about, can you see my cursor when I move it on the screen? Or you can't? Put a plus in the
Yeah,
chat.
we can.
Great, because it's difficult to show information without cursor. Okay, so let's start. Very simple example, it's input tag. In most cases, we can use it without type, but when we add a type, we specify this tag. So in this case, we show that input has a type password. It means when you start to type any text in this input, this text will be hidden and you can see only dotted on stars. Text area. Usually, again, it's not necessary to use these attributes, but when we specify rows, columns, names, text area became, maybe it would be better to show you. Okay, we are developers. And it is. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, here is our text area. As you can see, it's a very big field with the rows equal 10 and the columns equal 45. But if we remove these attributes, our text area will look like this one. So the different again.
You can Can you increase the font?
Oh, easy.
Then
We leave it. So as I said, usually attributes help to increase functionality of the text. And the same situation with the last one, it's about images. For images, we can add attribute source to specify path to the image, and of course width and size for image. If we use a lot of attribute for particular tag, we can write it in a one line or using multi-lines, each for every attribute. Both cases are valid and applicable. On the separate place-based data attribute. Data attribute, it's attribute that usually store some information that you can use for instance, for JavaScript functionality. So in this case, data, it's a necessary part, but price or weight or another word you can choose by yourself, and for this value, you can add any value as you want. And lately, this information can be used for some JavaScript functionality. And as I said, you can visit this page and read about it a bit more. Okay, let's move to the next step. It's document structure. All HTML files have a basic document structure. On the first place, on the first row, you can find information about Doctype. Currently, it looks like this, but on the next slides, I will show you how it looks early. So this text show what version of HTML we use for our page. Current version is HTML5. That's why it has such syntax for Doctype. Early, we can use HTML 4.01 and more early. After Doctype definition, you can find main tag. It's HTML. HTML, it's a main tag which contain all your page markup. And inside this tag, usually are based to additional tags. It's a head and body. Head, it's like, I would say, inner browser information. Usually information which based inside of this text are not displayed on your web page, but a lot of useful information can be added in this section. So you can specify, for instance, like here, title of the page. Here you can be added different styles, JavaScript code if it's necessary, and other imports. After head goes body tag. Inside body tag, you write your markup, and this markup will be displayed on your page. So it's content, images, and etc. information. Again, on the first place, Doctype, then HTML, inside HTML, head, it's browser inner information, executing information, and body. This is the information that user can see. Okay, here is a couple tags that can be added into head. It's like a title, link, meta information, script. As I said, script, it's connection, external script files, also links for CSS, for icons, for fonts, for another file that you want to add to your page. Meta, usually it's informations for browsers, for search engines, and the other. And title, it's just document title. Body contain a lot of text, and some of these texts we learn today. And as I promised, I show you how Doctype's versions look like. As I said, here is the actual version of Doctypes, and it is very simple, because if you compare it with the previous versions, it was very difficult to remember all this information. So now we use just this, I would say, shortcut. Okay, let's make a small break, and you can write your questions in the chat if you have it. Okay, I suppose that no questions. Let's move to another section. It's applying CSS and JavaScript to your HTML files. We start from CSS, and exist 3 approaches to add styles to your web page. First, it's inline styles. Inline styles is applicable for every tag, and for this purpose, you use special attribute style, and after that you add styles for this tag. These approaches exist, but I wouldn't say that it's very good, but you should know about it. The second approach, it's global styles. Again, as you remember, we had the head section. It's a special section with information that is not displayed on your page. So in this section, you can write style tag, and inside this tag, you can describe your style sheets, all style that will be applied for your page. And again, this approach exists, but I can say that it's a good approach to use it. And the last case, it's external file. And for instance, in this case, these styles are located into CSS folder and has a name styles.css. In these styles, you describe all styles that you want to apply to your web page, and after this, using special tag link, you add these styles to your HTML document. And this is the best practice how you can add styles on a page. Yes, and inside of this HTML file, you describe, as I said, you describe your styles. The last approach, I wouldn't say that it's completely separate. Inside HTML, you can import another one style. So, for instance, we have a main, or as a previous example, we have a main file for styles. It's a styles CSS. inside this style CSS, you can import another styles from another documents. But on your HTML page will be added only one main CSS style. Let's move to JavaScript applying. It's very familiar because the same approaches. First of all, it's anywhere in HTML file. For this goal, you should use script tag, and inside script tag you describe your logic. In this case, it's very simple logic. It's just console log message. The next approach, it's again external file, and it's as a CSS file. In this case, it's applicable and best practice for adding JavaScript to your HTML file. So for this goal, you use tag script. You specify with src attribute path to your file, and inside this file, you describe your logic. Script tag can be added into head and into body in the end. The difference I will explain you a bit later when we take a look at the topic flow. So the most applicable may be this one. Okay, let's talk about a bit about text and classification text by purpose. Usually text describe its acronyms because H, it means headings, UL, it's a list, unordered or ordered, table, it's full described text. So each tag describe what content it should contain. As I said, headings. Usually we use this tag when we want to describe the main tag, the main text on the page. And this tag has 6 levels from 1 to 6. And one level is very important heading. 6th level, it's still important, but not like 1. But it doesn't mean that all your headings you should wrap in H1 tag. No, it's wrong. And usually on the page, page can contain one main tag, one H1 tag, which explains the most important information, the main heading. Lists. Usually lists we can split into 2 big groups. It's a marked list and numberable list. And marked list can be ordered and unordered. In all cases, the structure is very familiar. For describe list element or list item, that's why li tag. We use li tag. It doesn't matter what type of list we use, ordered, unordered, number, doesn't matter. But the main structure we wrap into UL, unordered list, or for instance OL, ordered list. So here is the main wrapper, and inside main wrapper we can put our elements, and inside one of element, for instance, we can put another type of list. Here is the screenshot how the structure will be looks like. Tables. Tables is very simple. Usually tables contain a lot of information that we can split to a separate rows, cells, and the structure also is, I would say, is understandable. It's very very native, very simple. The main tag, it's a table. It's a wrapper. In addition, we can use tag caption. Caption, it's just a heading for a table. It's this tag contain information about the main content of a table. And inside table, we can use tags tr or table row for rows, td table data, and th table heading. It's like this one. For instance, th, it's a special and quantity for headings. Tr, table row. So it means that we have 2 rows. So just inside tr, we add td, which shows to us columns. So in this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tr tags and 2 columns. Here is the columns. And as I said, and as you remember, tags can contain attributes. In this case, we can use attribute rowspan for, I don't know, to remove border between 2 different cells. And the same for colspan. So make a unique columns and make a unique rows. Forms. It's a very, I would say, interesting element. It's a tag to which wrap a lot of input element, text area element, radio elements. So it's a big wrapper for element. Which elements? I would say it's a wrapper for elements with user can manipulate. So on the page, you can see a simple input element. You can find a select element that we will talk about it again. Different legend, again, text area, I already show it, and the wrapper, it's a form. Okay, form can contain a lot of attributes, a lot of inner fields, etc. elements. The main elements you can see on your screen, it's for instance legend, which describe a form, field set, that grouping of element, label, it's again description of different select element, input element, and the other input field, and button, text area, and as I said, a lot of information inside form can be put. Next, images or tag EMG. So as you understand, this tag is using to add image to your page. And for these tags, we usually use src attribute to specify path to the image. Sometimes we use width and height to add sizes for our pictures, and required attribute, it's alt. Alt attribute we use, and usually it's used by browsers to describe the picture. So if we have some maybe connection issues, I suppose that sometimes you can see this picture. So if we have connection issues or maybe server issues and our pictures is not applied to our page, in this case we can just show information about this page, for instance just image, like in this case. But most applicable cases when you describe your pictures more clearly. And why it's important, because in HTML, CSS existing such definitions like accessibility, validation, but in this case, accessibility is more interesting, and accessibility, it's a definition which shows that you should understand that your web page can be used by the different groups of the people. So they can be blind or they can't use mouse, for instance. And in this case, user can use screen readers. And when this screen reader move to a picture, usually it reads this information and user understand what the picture is. But it's again topic of the next lesson. Links. Again, links, it's one of the manipulation elements. With this element, user can interact, and it's very simple. When you click on a link, you will be redirected to another page. It can be inner or outer page. For this goal, we use attribute href, and in this attribute, we specify a path to the necessary page. Of course, in the link element, you can wrap or text or for instance, image. So if you click on the image, you will be again redirected to another page, or you click on a text, you will be again redirected. Okay, the next topic, it's logical text formatting. So almost all text has inner styles for themselves. So when you use, for instance, this text, as you can see, quote, strong, em, block quote, this text has logical meaning, accessibility meaning. So in a code, for example, you describe some programming snapshots, for instance, not snapshots, snapshots. When you use strong tag, you want to show that this information is important. It's not a heading, but this information is still important on the page. EM, it's a logical meaning, and it's just highlighting some important fragment in your text. Block quote, it's just a quote. And the opposite side, it's using just physical formatting. So on the previous slide, as I said, we have a tag strong and EM. One has style bold, another one has style italic, but strong and EM has a logical formatting. Here we have tags B and I, again, bold and italic. And that's it. No logical information, just styles, just inner browser style for the text. And you must understand the difference between just apply styles for a text and add any stress to particular words. Okay, again, a small breaks. If you have any questions, you can give me these questions into a chat. When we use be and when we use strong, okay, I would say that now in most cases, it would be better to use strong. Why? Because if you want to show that information is important, you can use special, or this previous page, this slide. Here, you should use logical stress, logical formatting for a text. When you want to add just styles, for this goal, you usually use CSS. So now B and I, these tags exist, but in all cases is more preferable to use strong and EM because you don't need it. What question about HTML will be at the interview? I would say all questions, a lot of questions from today and the next lectures. Usually HTML has a very easiest questions. Okay, let's move to HTML5 tags. When we speak about HTML bring to us a lot of semantic tags, a lot of accent tags, and a lot of location tags. So currently, the situation with HTML is very good because early full your page you can describe using maybe just two tags. It's div and span. But now we have a lot of tags, and all these tags describe the necessary information, as I said. And we start with the location tags. Usually location tags show to us the location of the particular section. For instance, it's a header. Usually it's the top of the site. Nav, it's a site navigation. Main, it's a wrapper for all main content. Footer, it's just footer of the site. It's the bottom of the site. Section, it's like I would say common wrapper for almost for all content. And aside, it's a section usually at the right or at the left and for some additional information. On the next slide, I will show you this. Okay, and again, HTML5 give us content text. And for this goal, we use article, figure, video, and audio. Article, it's a tag for article, for news, for blogs, some doesn't matter, for blocks of information, I would say. Figure, in this case, it's a group. It's not a group, it's a wrapper for group elements that can be used for images, that can be used for videos, audio files. And of course, video and audio, I suppose that I don't need to explain what does it mean. Special text, it's more clear text to describe some special information inside it, like a time. Inside this tag, we can put any data or any time. Source, again, inside this tag, we can answer audio or video file. And of course, canvas, it's a special area where we can draw, but one minus that inside this area we can draw using we can draw using only JavaScript. So we can't draw anything using CSS or HTML. Okay, header. As I said, header said a top section of the site. Usually this section are placed at the top of the page, and this is the first element that you can see when you open any page. So in this on this screen, you can see one of the variant. What kind of content can be wrapped in the header tag? As I said, it's just one variant. Again, for this goal, we can wrap this section with the image and, of course, H1 tag. We can wrap only navigation, maybe menu, but it doesn't mean that you use tag only for top section. It depends on content on your web page. Navigation is very simple. Usually it's a bunch of navigation links, and inside nav you describe all links that you use. It can be, as I said, inner links, outer links, and in this markup, as you can see, I don't use list to describe links, and I would say that it's a mistake, because in this case we use not one link, we use 4 links, and it's a list. And if it's list, each link should be wrapped into li tag, and all li tags should be wrapped into UL. So I would say that such markup is error, but I don't remember why I leave this variant. Again, on this page, navigation we can find at the top. Main. As I said, this text usually wrap the main content, and this tag goes after head and before footer. Usually, not always, but usually. And inside this tag, we can wrap all content, because mostly all content, because logically, we can split our page onto a couple sections. First section, it's a header. It's contain, as I said, maybe main heading, navigation, and such element, for instance, search bar, etc. At the bottom, usually base allocated footers. And between header and footer, we have the main information. Again, it depends on layout on web page, but in most cases, between header and footer, we'll put the main information. And footer. As I said, some additional information, usually it's used for some links, some copyrights information, some maybe social networks. And again, as I said, we can find the section at the very bottom. Section, it's a common wrapper for each content. We can put this element, this tag inside main attribute, because main can contain a lot of section which contain splitted information. If we take a look on this page, we have, for instance, 3 sections. It's very easy to understand where is sections based, because here we have different colors, different styles, and we can say that in this section we have one content. In this section we have another content, and again, just common wrapper for different content. And a site. A site, again, block with the content and additional information. Additional information like maybe advertising, like some links, like sidebar. EPAM official site doesn't contain sidebar, but if we take a look on this site, Euronews, we can find, for instance, this site which contain some additional links, again, social information, video, and another one which contains some articles, some theses. But here on the left, here on the right, there is the position of the sites. And article. Article, it's just a wrapper for content like news, article, block of the text. And here we can find it. So it's one big, because here we have a heading, here we have an image, but the arrow shows that this information still connect with this image and this heading. Here is we have 2 another articles and another. Figure. Figure, it's a tag. It's semantic tag which show connection between image and description of the image. Okay, take a look, please, on the snapshot. Okay, as a wrapper, we have article tag. Inside article, we put figure. Figure tag, again, it's a wrapper for image and for description of this image. So here we have image, and description we put into another special tag, it's fig caption. So figure always contain fig caption, image and description of the image. And here we can find this information. Image and description, images and description. I would say that it's a heading, but again, this element we can write, we can put into image. Is it one image? Here is the description. So all this content can be put into figure caption tag. And almost, oops, video tag. Video, it's very simple. It's contains some video information. It's how it looks like. So we just use video is a wrapper. We can specify width and height for this video. We can again add controls for it, and again inside video we use source tag, and inside this source tag we can specify a path to our video file, and here's how it looks like. And audio, almost the same. One difference, it's just the audio file. So here is the video. It's the next one. Here is the video, and here is the audio. Here is the difference. Canvas. Canvas is, as I said, it's a special tag. It's a field, and in this field you can draw anything. So here, how we use this tag, but as I said, draw inside canvas, we can only use in JavaScript. Okay, structure and flow. This information about how browser read your HTML page, and flow show us that browser start to read it from the top to the bottom. It means that if we put at the bottom header, it will be at the top. If we put a section, it will be after the header. Nav. If we put a nav, it will be after the header, and again section, article, aside, main, doesn't matter. Here is our markup. So header, main, footer. Again at the top, header, main, footer. Inside main, say section, article, aside. And here is this part of markup. So it's just displaying information on your web page. So again, the same markup, and how this markup will be built and will be presented on your page. And as I promised to describe you why usually we put JavaScript at the bottom of our HTML document, because browser start to read your document at the top and move to the bottom. And if we put script tag at the top, here we don't have such example, but we need to understand it. So if we put, for instance, this our script tag, browser start to read it and find script tag, and it stopped parsing of HTML document, and he start to read our JavaScript file, and our flow will be blocked. So in this time, user will look at the white screen, and it's bad. That's why usually we put our script at the bottom of our HTML document, and firstly, browser start to read HTML document. It can find, for instance, styles. It's normal to put styles at the head. So it start to read styles, read HTML document, build our page, and at the end, he finds script and start executing our script. So our flow is not blocked, and it's more applicable case. Okay, let's talk a bit about types of text. Again, type of text. We can split our text on two big groups. It's block text and inline text. Block text takes all width of your page. So from the left to the right. Doesn't matter what content inside. Inline elements take space only for content. So if it's maybe small text, one word, and this one word we can wrap in a span, so it means that it's inline element, and here we can find this word. But if we wrap our number, for instance, like here into div element, it takes full width. So here is the example of block elements. And I would say that we have a lot of block elements, and much better to maybe remember inline elements. But it doesn't, I would say that it's not very important, because when you start to create your layout, you will understand it, because you will see the behavior of block and inline elements. Also manipulate with block and inline text. You can using CSS. So it means that, for instance, you can use H1 tag, but using CSS, you can add property display inline, and this block element in HTML became inline element in CSS. Here is some information about blocks elements, and I suppose that you can read it by yourself, but in most cases it's some information that you can add sizes for blocks elements. You can I don't know, edit alignment for them. You can add some properties, special properties, for instance, behavior of margin, behavior of padding. It's the different behavior between inline and block elements. And the same information about inline properties. I would say, between block element and inline element is located inline block element. It means that this type of element takes something from blocks and from inlines. So again, on this slide, you can find information about some specific behavior of this element, but you should know that in HTML exist only block and inline elements, but using CSS, we can apply one more type. It's inline block. I would say that text for inline block exist in HTML, but again, it's not clear behavior of inline. But again, image input select, yes, it's inline block, but different exist. But it doesn't matter. You can add any type of blocks for your elements as you want, as you need, as your layout that you will create is using. Okay, again, a small break and questions. I see. Is it a good practice to have more than one nav? That's a good question. I would say that I don't see any issues to use a couple navs on your page. Nav, it's a tag for navigation. So as we can see, this navigation can be located into, for instance, into header, into a site section. So yes, we can apply it. And if I'm not mistaken, we didn't receive any issues in validator. About validation, about validators, we are going to talk after your questions. So you can check it by yourself, but I don't see any issues. And I remember that I didn't receive some errors from validator. But in some articles, in some documentations, you can find information that nav you can use only for domain navigation. So on the one hand, we have information from validators that we can use a couple navs, but on the other hand, we can find information that nav we can use only for domain navigation. Oh, I saw a lot of questions. Whoa. Okay, about inline styles. Inline styles now, it's a bad practice when you use, when you, for instance, learn HTML and CSS. You should know about this approach to add styles for your elements, but try to not use it. In what cases you can apply it? I would say usually it's applicable to use inline styles when you try to add styles to element dynamically using JavaScript. But also in this case, you can manipulate with the styles only with using classes. Add styles to particular class and add class to element. So now try to do not use inline styles. Is the absence of main tag a mistake, bad practice? No. Using different text for particular content, it's a very big topic. And as I said, it's mostly accessibility, it's semantic, it's a very big topic of our next lesson. So I wouldn't say that it's a bad, but it would be great to show, for instance, screen readers, to show search engines, what kind of content is main on your page. Yes, it's the next comment. I see that bad practice. Yes, I wouldn't say that it's bad, but it's better to show. In every news, a site contains nav. Yes. In every news, a site contains nav. It's a main navigation. It's a layout. They put the main navigation into our site, and yes, why not? What's the difference between div and section? Div, it's a wrapper. It's a wrapper without any description. It's like I and B for a text. It's a common wrapper for each element. Or your web page you can create using only span and div, because div it's a block element, span it's inline element. Is it possible? Yes. Isn't good? No, because we have HTML5 and we have section, header, footer, and a lot of text to describe the content inside. So div, it doesn't mean anything. It's just wrapper. Yes, we can use both. It doesn't mean that you should write all content in the section, span, div, all these tags is still applicable, but you should understand that it's just wrapper, which doesn't mean anything. Okay, if your website has multiple pages, it is easier to store CSS in different files. So if you want to change, for example, a look of H1 header, all the pages, you will be able to do this just once in a CSS file. Okay, I would say that it's a tricky question because splitting of CSS files, it's a you need a lot of practice to understand this the main idea. Yes, usually in production project we split our files to a different. We split our styles to different files and add some files to one pages, another one to other pages. But in this case, usually we have some common, like common CSS files where we describe main practice of our application or our web page. For instance, in this file, we can create class title and add particular styles for it. Usually, it's not a good idea to add styles for a text. To a text, we use attribute class, for instance, and using a class, we can describe styles for tag. So in most cases, we create common styles with the classes and apply these classes to a different text. Why a site has section inside? I'm not sure that I understand this question. Andy, could you be more specific, maybe? Previous slides. Let's take a look. Oh, I suppose it maybe in the flow, maybe some here. Okay. Page with the code. Maybe here. Main aside. I don't know. For instance, in some cases, HTML don't apply some strict rules to use the wrappers. For instance, here we show that our section and our site is the main content. Yeah, maybe it's more common case. It's put a site outside of the main. You're right. Maybe it would be better because a site it's a separate section, but yes, maybe it mistake. In this case, yes. It can be, yes, just a site outside of main. Semantic. We can check it. I will talk about it. Well, I don't see that we have any issues connected with this structure. So I would say that this markup is valid. Okay, let's move to the validation. You already see this functionality. So HTML validation. Validation definition, what is it? Usually validation, it's checking of your HTML markup by special software. As you can see, this is Validator. Validator is soft which was created by World Wide Web Consortium, and they updated this because World Wide Web Consortium, it's an organization which produced the rules for HTML semantic, for HTML tags, and etc. Yes, you already see this. It's very easy to check your validation, and you will check your home tasks using this site. Here is the link to it. So we have a couple options. It's validation by URL address. You just put your link to your home page, for instance. You can upload your HTML document, or you can directly input your markup. And after click a check, you will receive information. So the main checkers, it's syntax validation, checking of the nesting. It means that that, for instance, in nav, you can't put, for instance, footer, because nav should be put in the footer. So it's nesting. Validation of DTD. DTD, it's a document type. So if you didn't put Doctype in your HTML page, you will receive this information. Why I close this page? Yes, here is this. Is you just enter all your markup. Increase font size. You just put your markup here, and if you have an issues, Validator successfully explain you these issues. So always use this site to check your layout, because in some cases it can be error, in some cases it's just warnings, but a lot of useful information about nesting, about Doctype, you can find here. For instance, I didn't put Doctype at the top, and Validator showed me this issue. So it checks everything in your HTML. And of course, if you have any fails, any warnings, any errors, your document is invalid. Oops. Pros and cons, it's very simple because it's simple for explanation. Always check your layout using Validator. I would say that in production project, yes, not always your markup can be valid, because there are a lot of dependencies why it can happen. But when you study in Rolling Scope School and when you learn HTML, CSS, always check your markup in Validator. Here's some pros against. And a couple rules. And I suppose that with HTML, we just finished, and we move to CSS. A couple words about CSS. So CSS, it's, as I said, it's cascade style sheets. It's styles that explain how your text structure in HTML documents will be looks like on the web page, on the site. So structure is very simple. On the first place, go selectors. It can be tags, it can be classes, it can be combinations of different maybe classes and selectors. Another one I will, again, a bit later, I will show you this. And declaration, it's a rules which shows styles. In these rules, you describe your styles. For instance, font size, it's a property, and we add font size to a tag P, and we establish it. It's a value to a 12 pixels. So the syntax is very simple. Well, as I said, you can put CSS, for instance, in your maybe pet project just for training into your HTML document to not create any separate document, and all styles you can put in a style tag. And usually we have two types how you can describe your styles. It's one line and multiple line, but in 99% it's multiple lines, because one element can be described by a lot of rules. So it's more applicable, more common is use multiple lines. Selectors. Today we just touch a bit simple selectors. Selectors, it's I would say it's an anchor to HTML tag for adding styles to it. Selector all, it's just this star. So if you apply this selector to your HTML document, it means that styles will be applied for each element on the page. So we add this star, describe our rules. It's just the color red. And inside body, we have h1, p, span, text, but all these text has style color red. Selector by tag name. So we have a tag h1, p, span, but for p, we apply color green. And for paragraph and important info will be applied styles with a green text. Selector by class name. This is the way that you will be used for your project, because it's, I would say that it's a common case. Again, for doesn't matter. Class, it's a universal attribute. This attribute can be applied, you can apply for different tags. It doesn't mean it's a pair or it's a div, it's a body, navigation, nav, header, footer. It doesn't mean. You just add class, you just add the name of the class, for instance, example, and styles that you apply for this class will be applied for elements. In this case, it's for the first and for the third paragraphs. Selector by ID. Again, you should know about it. So in your markup, you can use ID. It's an attribute ID. Then you specify it's like a current, and if you want to add the style, you put a hash and then describe a style. But again, it's not a good practice. I would say that it's a bad practice. Why it's a bad, I will explain a bit later. But again, you should know a bit about it, but please don't use it. Cascading and inheritance. Cascading and inheritance, it shows us how styles will be applied for different elements and different selectors. Please take a look at this markup. We have paragraphs with classes, with the ID, and without anything. And we can add styles for tag, for class, and for ID. And for instance, we add a background green, but here we don't have any green styles. Why? Because class name and ID has, I would say, has a bigger weight. That's why these styles is rewritten. So in this case, we have a pink. In this case, we have a aqua. It doesn't mean that, and for instance, at the end, we can again add background gray, and the first will be gray. Why? Because on the first line and on the last lines, we describe P. We describe only the first paragraph, which doesn't contain class and ID. On this line, we describe background color green. But as you know, as you maybe remember, browser reads your document from the top to the bottom. And this class, this color, this property will be override by this one. That's why first our paragraph is gray. And some priority. On the first place is importance. We can put important for our property and only one case that can override styles. In this case, it's using inline styles. That's why, again, about this possibility you should to know, but please don't use important in your home tasks, in your practice. Yes, in some cases you can use it, but it shows that in your styles you have some issues because you without this you can't override styles. So it shows you from the bad side. The next specificity. Tag, class, ID. Usually we count it's like tag, it's a 1, styles, it's a 10, and ID, it's a 100. So 100 is has a weight. It's the biggest number. That's why ID. That's why our styles. That's why I don't know how it's explained. Okay, if we apply these styles for P element and we use styles by tag, by class name, and by ID, and we want to check what kind of background will be applied, in this case will be applied pink background color because styles have a weight 100. If we don't have this section ID, then background will be aqua. because style has a weight 10. And if we don't have ID or class, so styles will be by tag. And in this case will be background color black. And source order, I already explained it, that if we use styles by the same element, it can be, for instance, for P. So browser read document from the top to the bottom, and this background will be overridden by this one. Again, some information about importance and why you shouldn't use it in your practice. Just remember, important and inline styles, it's a bet. And specificity. On the top level, it's inline styles. That's why one of the reasons why you shouldn't use it, because it's impossible to overwrite inline styles. On the second place is selectors. Then classes, normal elements and pseudo elements, and on the last place is our star. It's apply styles for all elements on the page. And it was the last slide of our long presentation. I'm ready for questions. So thank you for listening. So now we open questions, answers sections. I hope my English not very bad and you understand all main ideas. Anyway, we will share link to the presentation. Yes, we share it. And don't forget that some of the slides, where is the slides? Okay, has a blue icon. Okay, I suppose that you remember this icon. Oh, here it is. And this is a useful link, so please click, and here you find the information about, for instance, data structure, about global structure, and etc. useful things. Yes, validation is useful. As I said, in this school, you must use validators to check your markup. On the real project, not always your markup can be valid. Anya, are you with us?
Sure. I'm here.
I see the questions about homework, maybe.
As Vadim mentioned in chat, current task, the deadline for current task on Thursday, and then you will get next one. So today you should continue work on CV task. Guys, the actual scheduler, 1 second, I provide the link. The scheduler is on actual status, so you can find the all task here. I mean the name of the task. In the RES app, you may find the link for this task, and all other tasks are optional for you. Is it clear?
Okay, also I see the questions about specificity. Yes, it's some tricky topic for explanation. Here's how we count it. Maybe I can find, or this one, no. Maybe this. Okay, if we take a look at this picture about specificity, look at this. For instance, Lee. Lee has specificity 1. It's because it's just the tag. If we have two tags, UL, Lee, it's 1 plus 1. It's 2. Again, here we have a bit completed selector. We didn't cover this topic, but anyway, you should know about some type of completed selectors. Well, in this case, again, UL, OL, Lee, we have 3 tags, 3 styles, and the result is 3. For instance, if we have class, as you can see, first element, UL, doesn't have class, second doesn't have class, and the last one has a class. It's a class red. So how we count? Class is a 10. You just need to remember that tag is a 1, class is a 10, ID is 100, and inline is 1000, and that's it. So class is a 10. 10 plus 3 tags, 13. If we have two classes, again, 10 plus 10 and 1 tag Lee, 21. That's why when we apply, for instance, this structure for one element, this is a Lee, as you can see everywhere. In the end, we can find a Lee. Only the last styles, because the final number is 21, will be applied for Lee element. If this element has ID, please don't use ID for styles, but anyway, you should know about it. If this element has ID, the number of specificity is 100. That means that ID will override all previous styles. Here is the specificity of styles. I remember that I said you don't use ID for styles and use classes for styles. Remember one thing, ID for JavaScript, classes for styles, because ID it's a unique element on the page. If you create ID, for instance, test in HTML document, you can apply it only for one element. You can edit this ID for another one. That's why it's not useful to use ID for styling, because as I said, in most cases you create common styles. For instance, class. How is class? Class red, and you applied it across your web page, across your site for each element as you want. That's why, just remember, classes for styles, ID for JavaScript. Okay, I suppose no more questions. Okay, Alice, there is another way to change style instead of important. Yes, of course. Oh, it's open. For instance, like this. Look at this table. You can add style for Lee. For instance, it would be color red. But then you can overwrite your style with two tags. You specify, you add UL and Lee. And in this case, you can add color black and will be applied black. For this case, we have Lee, red, and level. Lee tag with two classes, red and level. We can create, I know that it's a bad, but if we have so long selector for element, we can create one more class. Or maybe add UL. UL, Lee, red level, and overwrite your styles. Important, it's a very, very bad practice that you shouldn't use it. It's very exception case. Is it a good idea to give class to a main tag? Why not? You can add class for each tag that you want to update, that you want to style. Okay, so thank you for your attention. Thank you for your participation. We'll see you on Thursday. Good night and
Thank you
goodbye.
again. It was amazing webinar lectures. See you on Thursday.
Yes, bye again.